"My ankle is broken. You must carry me," the Apache woman called to the cowboy. The sun was already low when the cowboy turned his horse toward the canyon trail. It had been a long day, and the land looked tired too. Dry grass bent under the wind, and the rocks held the heat of the afternoon like a quiet warning. This was not a place people crossed at night unless they had no choice. He knew that well. He had grown up riding these lands, learning every bend and shadow, learning when to move and when to stop. He rode slowly, listening more than watching. Out here, sound traveled far. A loose stone, a bird lifting suddenly, the far call of an animal, everything mattered. His horse sensed it too, ears turning, steps careful. The canyon walls rose higher as he went on, cutting the sky into thin lines of fading blue. He was thinking about home when he heard it. A voice. At first he thought it was the wind playing tricks. The canyon often did that, carrying echoes that sounded real until they vanished. He slowed his horse and listened again. Then he heard it clearly, strong, steady, and close enough to raise the hair on his arms. "Cowboy!" He pulled the reins hard. The horse stopped, breathing fast. The cowboy turned in the saddle, scanning the rocks and brush. He saw nothing at first. The land looked empty like it always did. Then the voice came again, sharper this time. "My ankle is broken. You must carry me." It was not a plea. It was not weak. It was a command. The cowboy slid down from his horse, boots hitting stone. His hand moved by habit toward his belt, not in threat but in caution. He took a few steps forward, eyes searching the ground below a narrow ledge. That was when he saw her. She sat against a large rock, one leg stretched out, the other bent close. Her dark hair was loose, falling over her shoulders. Dust marked her clothes, and nearby lay a horse, breathing shallow, one side pressed into the ground. The animal had fallen badly. Even the cowboy could see that. The woman's face was calm, but her jaw was tight. Pain lived in her eyes, even though she did not show it with sound. She looked at him as if she had been waiting, as if she knew he would come. He stopped a few steps away, unsure. "You hurt?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded once. "My ankle, I cannot stand." The horse slipped. He followed her gaze to the leg. It was already swelling, the foot turned in a way that told him this was serious. Night was coming fast. The canyon would be cold soon, and moving in the dark would be dangerous. He looked back up at her. "You got people nearby?" "My people are far. I was tracking alone," she said. "I cannot stay here." Her words were simple, but the weight behind them was heavy. Alone, injured. In this place. The cowboy felt a pull inside him, one he could not ignore. Still, he hesitated. He knew the history of this land. He knew trust was not given easily from either side. Helping was not always simple. Sometimes it brought trouble with it. She watched his face closely, reading the pause. "Night will come soon," she said. "You are strong. You can carry me." It was not pride that stopped him, but fear of doing the wrong thing. He was a stranger to her. She was a stranger to him. The land did not forgive mistakes. He walked closer, crouching so he could see her ankle clearly. "It'll hurt," he said honestly. "I know pain," she replied. That answer settled something in him. He stood, took off his coat, and folded it carefully. "We'll need to move before dark," he said. "There's a trail that leads out, but it's rough." She nodded. "I can guide you." That surprised him. He looked at her again, really looked. She was injured, yes, but there was nothing broken in her spirit. She carried herself like someone who knew the land as well as he did. He knelt in front of her. "I'm going to lift you," he said. "Tell me if it's too much." She placed one hand on his shoulder, steady and sure. "Go." He slid one arm behind her back and the other under her knees, careful to avoid her injured foot. When he lifted her, she tensed but did not cry out. Her breath caught, then steadied. She was lighter than he expected, but the weight still pressed into his arms, real and demanding. For a moment they were very close. He could smell dust and sage, feel the strength in her grip. He felt her trust, given without ceremony. He straightened slowly, adjusting his hold. His horse shifted behind him, uneasy. The fallen horse let out a weak sound. She looked at her horse, pain crossing her face for the first time. "He cannot move," she said softly. The cowboy nodded. "I'll mark the place. We'll come back if we can." She accepted that, though it was clear it cost her something. He turned toward the trail, each step careful. The ground was uneven, stones loose. The canyon seemed narrower now, the walls closing in as the light faded. The sky above shifted from blue to deep orange. She spoke directions quietly, pointing with her hand. "Left there. Watch the edge." He followed her lead, trusting her knowledge. Sweat formed on his brow despite the cooling air. Carrying her was hard, but stopping would be worse. As they moved, he became aware of how silent they were. No unnecessary words, just breath, steps, and the sound of the wind. It felt important, this quiet, like speaking too much would break something. After a while he said, "My name's not important, but folks call me a cowboy." She almost smiled. "I know what you are." That was all she said. The path dipped sharply and he had to adjust his footing. She tightened her grip, steadying herself and him. They worked together without planning it, like two people who understood balance and risk. The first stars appeared overhead. He felt the weight of time now. Night would bring cold and the canyon could hide dangers he could not see. Still, turning back was not an option. She looked up at the sky. "You came when I called," she said. "That matters." He did not answer right away. He focused on the trail, on keeping her safe. Finally he said, "Out here you don't ignore a voice." She studied his face as if measuring those words. They reached a narrow ledge where the wind picked up, sharp and sudden. He stopped for a moment to rest, leaning her gently against the rock while still supporting her weight. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said, though sweat marked her forehead. "We must keep moving." He nodded and lifted her again, muscles burning now. The canyon stretched ahead, dark and uncertain, but he kept walking. Somewhere behind them, the wind carried away the place where they had met, as if the land itself was closing that chapter. Ahead lay only the path, and whatever this choice would bring. The cowboy kept moving even when his arms began to shake. He did not say anything about the weight or the pain in his shoulders. He had learned long ago that the land did not care about complaints. You either kept going, or you paid the price. The woman rested quietly in his arms, her breathing slow and controlled. Every now and then he felt her adjust her grip, not to ease herself, but to help him keep balance. The trail grew narrower as they went deeper into the canyon. Loose stones rolled under his boots, and he slowed his steps, testing each place before putting his full weight down. The sky above them was now dark purple, and the last light slipped behind the high rock walls. Shadows stretched and blended together, turning familiar shapes into uncertain ones. "Stop here," she said softly. He halted at once. "What is it?" "The ground ahead dropped suddenly," she explained. "2 steps down, then flat." He nodded and followed her guidance carefully. Without her words, he might have stepped too far and lost balance. It was clear now that she knew this land well. She was not just passing through when she fell. This place mattered to her. "You've walked this canyon before," he said. "Yes," she answered. "Many times." That was all, but it told him enough. This was not fear he was carrying. It was strength that had been slowed, not broken. The wind grew colder, slipping through the canyon like water. He felt it against his neck and knew the night would be harsh. He adjusted his hold slightly, keeping her closer to his chest to protect her from the chill. Her voice came again, quieter now. "You should set me down soon. You will tire." "There's a bend ahead," he replied. "We'll rest there." She did not argue. That too earned his respect. When they reached the bend, he found a shallow space against the rock where the wind was weaker. He slowly lowered her, careful with her injured ankle. As soon as her back touched the stone, he stepped away and rolled his shoulders, breathing deeply. She watched him, her eyes sharp even in the fading light. "You are used to hard work," she said. He shrugged. "Land teaches you." She nodded as if she understood that lesson well. He crouched in front of her and checked her ankle again. The swelling had increased and the skin was tight. He tore a strip from his shirt and wrapped it gently, not to fix it, but to give support. He worked carefully, his hand steady. "You don't rush," she said. "Rushing causes mistakes." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "My name is not important right now." He accepted that. Names could wait. Survival came first. The night settled fully around them. Stars filled the narrow slice of sky above, bright and countless. The canyon felt alive in a different way now. Every sound echoed longer. Every movement seemed louder. He stood again. "We need to move before it gets colder," she nodded. "I will guide." He lifted her once more, slower this time, saving his strength. His arms protested, but he ignored it. Each step forward was a promise to her and to himself. As they continued, the trail began to climb. His breathing grew heavier. Sweat cooled quickly on his skin, making him shiver. Still, he did not stop. "You can put me down again," she said. "In a moment." She studied his face, seeing the strain he tried to hide. "Stubborn," she said, not unkindly. He almost smiled. The climb ended at a flat stretch, and he finally set her down. He leaned against the rock, chest rising and falling fast. For a while, neither of them spoke. "You could have left," she said at last. "Many would have." He looked out into the dark canyon. That wasn't an option. She watched him closely. Why? He thought about that. There were many answers, but only one true one. Because you asked. She held his gaze for a long moment, then looked away. "That matters," she said again. A distant sound echoed through the canyon, a low call carried by the wind. The cowboy froze. "You hear that?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she said. "Animals far enough." He relaxed slightly but stayed alert. The night could bring surprises. They started again, moving slower now. The trail widened, becoming easier underfoot. He followed her directions without question. Trust had formed between them, not spoken but solid. As they walked, she spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "You are careful with me. You're hurt. And still you treat me like I am strong." He considered that. "You are." She did not answer, but he felt a shift in her, as if his words had reached something deeper than the moment. The canyon slowly opened, the walls lowering. The wind softened. He could smell open land ahead. That gave him hope. "There," she said, pointing. "Past that rise there is a place to stop." He pushed himself harder, drawn by the thought of rest. When they reached the spot, he saw what she meant, a shallow hollow protected by rock on 3 sides. It was the kind of place travelers used when night caught them far from shelter. He set her down gently and stepped back, stretching his arms. They burned with effort, but he felt no regret. "We'll stay here," he said, "just for a while." She nodded. "That is wise." He gathered dry brush and small sticks, moving quickly. Soon a small fire flickered to life, casting warm light on the rock walls. The canyon seemed less threatening now. She watched the flames, her face calm but tired. The fire reflected in her eyes. "You saved my life tonight," she said quietly. He shook his head. "We're not done yet." "Still," she replied, "what you did matters." He sat down across from her, keeping enough distance to be respectful. The fire crackled between them. For the first time since they met, the tension eased. Not gone, but softened. The cowboy looked at the flames, thinking about how quickly a simple ride had turned into something else. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He only knew that when a voice had called in the canyon, he had answered, and that choice had changed the night. The woman shifted slightly, careful of her ankle. She looked at him again, steady and thoughtful. "When the sun rises," she said, "our paths may separate." He nodded. "Maybe, but this night," she continued, "will be remembered." He met her gaze, feeling the truth of her words settle between them. The fire burned low as the canyon held their silence, and the land watched, as it always did when 2 lives crossed on uneven ground. The fire burned low but steady, sending soft light across the rocks. The cowboy added another small piece of wood and watched the flames rise again. The warmth felt good after the cold wind of the canyon. The woman sat quietly, her injured leg stretched out, her face calm but tired. The night wrapped around them, deep and still. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence was not heavy. It felt natural, like the land itself was asking them to listen instead of talk. Somewhere far away, an animal called, then went quiet again. The cowboy broke the silence first. "I'll check your ankle again," he said. She nodded. "Do what you must." He moved closer, careful not to rush. The firelight showed the swelling clearly now. He touched gently, watching her face for any sign of pain. Her jaw tightened, but she did not pull away. "It's bad," he said honestly. "You won't be walking on it tomorrow." "I know," she replied. "That is why I did not argue with you." He wrapped the cloth tighter, giving as much support as he could. He knew it was not a real fix, but it was better than nothing. When he finished, he leaned back on his heels. "You should rest," he said. "So should you," she answered. He gave a short breath that was almost a laugh and sat down near the fire again. The heat warmed his hands, and slowly the tightness in his shoulders eased. The woman watched the flames for a while, then spoke softly. "You wonder why I was alone?" He looked at her, surprised by her sudden words. "I didn't want to ask," she nodded. "Still, you wonder." "Yes." She took a slow breath. "I was looking for my younger cousin. He did not return from hunting. The tracks led into this canyon." The cowboy listened closely. "You think he came through here?" "Yes. I followed signs until my horse slipped." He glanced toward the darkness where the canyon stretched back. "You shouldn't have been alone." She met his gaze without anger. "Sometimes you do what must be done, even if it is not safe." He understood that more than he wanted to admit. The fire cracked, sending sparks upward. She continued, her voice steady. "My people will search at first light. They will find us." "That's good," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "But until then, we wait." They sat quietly again. The night air grew colder, but the fire held strong. The cowboy took off his coat and folded it, placing it gently over her shoulders. She looked at him. "You will freeze." "I've handled worse," he said. She did not argue, but her eyes softened. She pulled the coat closer around herself. "Why did you come this way today?" she asked. He thought about it. "I was checking land, making sure nothing was wrong." "And now something is," she said lightly. He smiled at that. The stars moved slowly across the sky. Time felt different here, stretched and quiet. The woman leaned back against the rock, her breathing slowing as tiredness took hold. "You can sleep," he said. "I'll keep watch." She shook her head. "I will not sleep deeply. Pain will not allow it." He nodded. "Still, rest your eyes." She did, if only for moments at a time. Each time she shifted, he noticed, ready to help if needed. He stayed alert, listening to the sounds of the canyon. After a while, she opened her eyes again. "You have been watching me," she said. "Making sure you're all right." She studied him. "You are careful with your eyes, too. You do not stare." He felt a slight heat in his face and looked back at the fire. "That's just respect." She accepted that answer. The fire burned lower, and he added another branch. The light danced across the canyon walls, making shadows move like quiet spirits. The woman watched them, thoughtful. "My grandmother used to say the land remembers kindness," she said. He looked at her. "You believe that?" "I do," she replied. "Do you?" He considered the question. "I think the land remembers everything, good and bad," she nodded. "That is wisdom." They shared a small smile. Hours passed. The cold deepened, but neither complained. The cowboy stayed awake, his senses sharp. The woman drifted in and out of light rest, waking whenever pain pulled her back. At one point she spoke again, her voice lower. "If you had not come, I would have survived the night, but barely." He looked at her. "I'm glad I did." "So am I," she said. The fire slowly faded to embers. The sky began to change just a little. The black softened to dark blue. "Morning will come soon," he said. "Yes," she replied, "and with it answers." He stood and stretched, his muscles stiff. He walked a short distance to look out over the land. The canyon looked different now, less threatening, more open. When he returned, she was watching him. "You are thinking about leaving," she said. "About what comes next," he corrected. She nodded. "Whatever happens, remember this night." "I will." A faint sound reached them, then voices carried by the morning air. The woman's head lifted. "That is them," she said. The cowboy listened. The sound came again, clearer now. He felt relief, but also something else, harder to name. "They're close," he said. "Yes." She looked at him, her expression steady and grateful. "You did what was right." He met her gaze. "So did you." The voices grew louder and shapes began to move at the edge of the land. The night was ending. As the first light touched the canyon, the fire finally went out, leaving only warmth in the stones and the quiet truth of what had been shared between them. The voices came closer as the light grew stronger. The cowboy stood still, not wanting to make any sudden move. He knew this moment mattered. The woman beside him had already pushed herself upright, even though her ankle caused her pain. She wanted to be seen with strength, not weakness. Soon figures appeared across the open land. 3 riders first, then 2 more behind them. They moved carefully, watching everything. Their horses slowed when they saw the fire marks and the 2 people near the rocks. The woman raised her hand slightly. It was a simple signal but full of meaning. One of the riders called out her name. The sound carried relief. She answered back, her voice clear. "I am here." The riders moved faster now. When they reached her, they stopped and dismounted. Their eyes moved quickly from her injured leg to the cowboy standing nearby. The air changed. It was not anger but caution. The cowboy stepped back half a pace, giving space. He kept his hands visible and relaxed. He had learned that respect often began with distance. "She is hurt," one of the men said, his voice firm. "She fell from her horse," the cowboy replied calmly. "I helped her out of the canyon." The woman spoke before anything else could be said. "He carried me through the night," she said. "He kept me safe." That ended much of the tension. The riders looked at her again, really looked. They saw the wrapped ankle, the coat around her shoulders, the signs of care. One of the women stepped forward and knelt beside her. "You should not have been alone." "I know," she answered. "But I chose my path." The others accepted that. They turned to the cowboy with new eyes, not friendly yet but no longer closed. "You stayed," one of the riders said. It was not a question. "Yes." The woman looked up at him. "You may walk with us a little farther," she said. "Until the ground is smooth." He nodded. "Of course." They prepared a simple way to move her without hurting her ankle more. The cowboy helped, following instructions, never taking control unless asked. He could feel their watchful eyes on him, measuring his actions. As they began to move, the canyon slowly fell behind them. The land opened wide, soft hills replacing sharp stone. The morning sun warmed their faces. The woman rode now, supported, but she kept looking back at the path they had taken. The cowboy walked beside for a while, then slowed when they did. "You can stop here," she said after some time. He nodded but did not step away yet. "They'll take good care of you." "They always do," she replied. One of the riders spoke. "We thank you for what you did." The words were simple, but they carried weight. The cowboy tipped his head slightly. "I did what anyone should." The woman met his eyes. "Not everyone would." That stayed with him. They stood there for a moment, the group and the cowboy, connected by one long night. Then the riders turned, guiding her forward toward safety. Before she went too far, she looked back one last time. "The land will remember you," she said. He watched them until they became smaller against the wide earth. Then he turned toward his horse and the quiet path home, feeling the weight of the night slowly settle into memory. The cowboy stood for a long moment after the riders disappeared into the distance. The land felt wide and quiet again, as if nothing unusual had happened. But he knew better. Some moments left marks that could not be seen. He took a slow breath, then turned toward his horse. The animal waited where he had left it, calm and patient. He placed a hand on its neck, feeling the steady warmth. "Let's go home," he said softly. The ride back was slower than usual. The sun was higher now, lighting every curve of the land. Birds moved through the air, and the wind carried the smell of dry grass. Everything looked the same as it always had, yet he felt different moving through it. As he rode, his thoughts returned to the night again and again. He remembered the sound of her voice calling through the canyon. He remembered the weight in his arms, the careful steps, the firelight on stone. He had crossed that canyon many times, but never like that. When he reached his small place at the edge of the land, he dismounted and let the horse rest. He took care of simple tasks, water, feed, checking the saddle, but his mind wandered. Even ordinary movements felt slower, more thoughtful. Later he sat on the step outside his home, watching the land stretch into the distance. The quiet was deep. It gave him space to think. He wondered how her ankle would heal. He imagined her among her people, supported and safe. That thought brought him comfort. He did not need to know more than that. Days passed. Life returned to its usual rhythm. He worked the land, rode his roots, spoke little as always. But something had changed in how he listened. He noticed sounds more quickly, paid attention to small shifts in the wind. It was as if the land had asked him to be more aware. One afternoon, while checking a far fence, he found tracks near the trail. Not fresh, but clear enough. He recognized the pattern of many horses moving together. He paused, studying them, then nodded to himself. They had passed through safely. That night, as he rested, he thought again about her words. The land will remember you. He did not know if that was true, but he hoped it was. Weeks later, he saw riders again in the distance. This time, they came in daylight, unhurried. He stopped his horse and waited. As they approached, he recognized the group. His heart lifted, calm but sure. She rode among them. Her ankle was wrapped, but she sat tall, steady. When they reached him, she smiled. Not wide, not loud, just real. "You healed," he said. "Yes," she replied, slowly. They spoke for a short time. No long explanations were needed. The riders waited with respect. "I wanted to see you again," she said, "to thank you properly." He shook his head. "You already did," she smiled again. "Still, words matter." They parted not as strangers, but not as something more either. Just two people who had shared a night that mattered. As he rode away later, the land stretched before him, open and familiar. The canyon lay far behind, but it was never truly gone. The cowboy understood something now. Real strength was not loud. It was shown in choices, in moments when no one else was watching. And whenever the wind carried a distant sound across the land, he listened, ready, as he always would be, to answer a call.